Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to WCS European Challenger. We are going to be bringing you games from Group C today. My name is Fear Dragon. I am joined by Nathanius.
Yo,
how you doing?
Fantastic. I'm doing great. I thought the camera shot was gonna start you. I was like getting all. I was all like, "Do we have a lobby invite yet?" But I'm feeling fantastic. How are you doing today, Ravi?
I'm doing well.
I feel like the host asks too many questions. How are you?
I know
Is everything okay?
You're oftentimes the host, so now you get to be hosted.
Did you get a good breakfast in today? You ready for StarCraft?
Oh man, it's hard to get breakfast when you're allergic to milk. But
goodness.
You know what? My breakfast is going to be a lot of ZvZs today.
All right.
Because it's going to be breakfast, lunch, and also going a little bit into dinner. But for those who are familiar with Challenger, then you'll know that there are going to be some really, really awesome groups being played today as well as next week. We had some groups played out last week, and all of these are going to be deciding who is moving on to those playoffs. These are kind of the tournament rules, as you guys can see here. And Nate, it's a pretty cool format. If in case anyone missed out from last week, it's a change from last year.
Yeah, I mean, this format is based on our groups, right? We're trying to decide regional champions, and there are other things to be gotten from here: prize money, WCS points, placement in future tournaments. But this is it's a nice thing to get a good studio space here, a good real broadcast for Challenger again. It's been fun.
Indeed. And of course, if you want to tune in for not just this broadcast that you might happen to have tuned into because you saw StarCraft going live, but there are also going to be a lot of other broadcasts happening next week as well as later on. We're going to have those playoffs, so you're definitely going to want to be sure to check out. Lots of really good StarCraft matches happening.
Yeah, so we'll be going through Group C today. That's going to be a fun one. As you mentioned, there's a lot of Zergs. We've had quite a few matches we did over the last weekend, and yeah, I mean, I'm not the Zerg versus Zerg expert, but you guys will be happy to know we've got Cats in the studio, so he will be coming up, and I will not have to say so many wrong things about what's in front of me. I'll just shout when the Banelings hit the Zerglings.
Indeed. But of course, if you aren't familiar with how the groups are actually played out today, the basic idea is that it's a double elimination group stage. It's similar to the GSL groups if you're familiar with that kind of format. Very typical format in StarCraft. 2 people advance on, 2 people will drop out in this round of 16, and only one can claim victory over the region in the end, Nate.
Yeah, and that's going to be tough. I mean, we talked about some of the players before we went live here, and we're going to take a look at that soon. But a lot of these group stages have been pretty stacked in terms of 1 or 2 players being very strong, sort of like the I'm going to get out first naturally when we talked about players like Neeb. And then the second player is a little bit, still above the rest, and the other 2 are trying to fight to see if they can get that second place off of the guy who's not the king of the crop.
Yeah, and I feel like this group today for Europe is going to be a bit interesting just because I feel as though when we talk about like the 4 players that are actually playing today and we take a look at that bracket, you'll see that it's kind of like I feel as though number 1 is really far ahead, and then number 2 and 3 are kind of close, and then number 4 I feel like is going to be the one fighting for a spot, and he's going to have the harder bracket there. But there is, in fact, those groups of the playoffs or the matches we're going to be seeing. We're going to be starting off with Starbuck versus Serral and then going into Drogo versus Bly.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this group. These are all very good European players, but Serral stands out above the rest very naturally. He's been one of, if not the best player in Europe this year, coming up as an extremely hot player last year. We're expecting great things out of him.
Yeah, I think everyone is expecting a lot of really good things. And of course, you have Bly and Drogo, fairly even level players, I think, in a lot of ways. And then you have Starbuck, who I think is going to be an interesting one. We'll maybe talk about him a bit later on when his match comes up. But these players, for those who are not familiar, are going to be playing for $10,000 in WCS Challenger, $1,600 for first place, $400 just for being able to play your matches and show up and make it to this stage in Challenger in the first place.
Yep. The prize money is spread out pretty evenly, but there is still a lot to be played for. It's nice for these players as the WCS circuit season is about to get kick-started once again. So having Challenger is going to get everybody back up to speed. Everyone's going to be competing for those regional titles before they get back to the big shebang, fighting for those spots at the global playoffs later this year.
Indeed. But, ladies and gentlemen, it is finally time to begin our first match from Group C. Let's get this group started as we go into Serral versus Starbuck. Now, I mentioned before, I want to talk a bit about Starbuck because we already said everybody knows who Serral is at this point. Yeah. Everyone knows that he is probably in contention for the best player in Europe right now, but Starbuck is this very interesting player because he has not really been participating in that many tournaments lately, I feel. He's been that player that I think played like 3 or 4 events in the entirety of 2017, and a lot of those were just qualifiers. So I think this is going to be a hard match.
Yeah, I mean, anyone in this bracket, if you were putting them up against, even if we didn't have it NA and EU, if you took the best players from NA, Serral is still going to be one of the players that you do not want to go up against. Starbuck, he's a good player. He's not the cream of the crop for Europe. He's one of those guys that you'll see playing a lot on ladder. A lot of the European streamers that you might watch will hit him, but don't get it confused. He's a memer. He's not the tip-top pro gamer, so let's see if he has anything special for this match.
All right, we're going to be starting up in the top left-hand corner of Catalyst, top of the blue Zerg player. Put your hands together for Serral.
Yes, and he is facing off against the red Zerg player in the southeast position. We have Starbuck. And Starbuck's not a bad player. That's not what we're trying to say. I mean, when you compare skill-wise, you know, I feel like Starbuck, he's the type of player that skill-wise we'd say he had the potential to do very, very well if he was playing something like the NA bracket. But the European scene just has so much talent. It is so difficult. And when you look at this group, you have so many players with so much history. And when I think about that, when I think about players like Bly, who doesn't take all the championships, but he's made tournament finals. He is a very good player. He's won tons of online stuff. And most importantly, he has insane amounts of experience over a long career. He does not get rattled. Drogo, very similar story. Championships there. And had those moments where he was considered to be one of the top players in Europe, which I think makes this group difficult because for me, second place doesn't really have a clear winner. I think that if Serral's definitely a first, then Drogo Bly, I couldn't really say who would get second place in this. So maybe that's the opportunity for Starbuck to come in if these players are all really focused on each other, where he can try to make that upset.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's sort of interesting because Starbuck is one of those players that has been around for a while. He's been around since 2012, but he never really had the breakout success that someone like Drogo or Bly did. So in a lot of ways, I do think that he is going to be that underdog. But I will say, if he's able to even take a game or much less a series off of Serral, that would be... I think we talked about this last week as well. It's one of those career-making moves. It's one of those things where people say, wait, did you guys get a chance to see that series where Starbuck beat Serral? That's something that's kind of the talk of the town for a while. Yeah,
an upset here would be a huge one to start off the group, to start off today's broadcast, really. I think if you're a fan of European StarCraft, I'm sure Serral's got quite a few fans that are tuning in and be like, yep, I'm going to watch this guy roll through his group. Should be easy peasy. Serral is the best.
Okay, well, we already see something kind of interesting from Starbuck because he has 8 lings out. Now, this is already more than Serral has, but it's also, I would say, at least 2 more than you usually see. You can even see that he's sending out 2 lings along kind of straight across path and 6 lings along the other path. So maybe trying to catch Serral a bit by surprise here. Trying to evade some of the overlords, and he might be able to get out on this third.
That's really nice, being able to get the lings around towards that third base that's being taken. Now the queen is coming up with those lings that are trickling out, but the rest of the lings focus down the hatch, and there it is, canceled by Serral. So Starbuck, he's going to see if the hatchery immediately restarts as his lings go back. Baneling Nest starts up for Serral at home. And Starbuck, he's just cranking out drones. He's taking some extra gases. We do not have a Baneling Nest or a Roach or anything like that. He's been playing without gas since the start of this game. Just wanted to use the lings to lead the third base and then make his transition into Roaches a little bit earlier and try to avoid that Zergling, Banelings era of the game.
Yeah, Ling does make its way into the main base over here for Starbuck, but I want to note, even though he did delay Serral's third base, he did not grab his own third base. It's like you said, he was just droning up, getting up his gas geysers, and now Serral's going to move in and see, okay, clicking on those gas geysers, he should know how much gas has been mined, or I should say how little gas has been mined, and the fact that there's not going to be Zergling speed from his opponent.
Yep. So I think we've seen an oftentimes a scenario like for Zerg versus Zerg, when you know that your opponent doesn't have that map control, especially since it's not like it was a fast layer where he went for Roaches. These Zerglings are able to get around the queen that's at the wall. Having the few on the other side really helps, but he doesn't have that defensive capability to get Zerglings out to try and help push this back. We do have a few lings on the way for Starbuck, but I mean, those slow lings are not going to get a positional victory against them. But what I was trying to say is by having these lings out on the map, the queens have a hard time leaving without the Roach support, so taking a third for Starbuck should be very difficult for a while.
Yeah, that's kind of the odd thing is that Serral was so quick to get up his +1 ranged attack. He was able to get up an eventual Roach Warren. So his Roaches will be out a little bit later, but he's not going to be behind in upgrades. He's even got his lair relatively, I mean, just a little bit, maybe 15, 10 seconds later than his opponents. So I don't feel like this kind of delayed third base, going for the fast Roaches is really paying off that well.
No, however, things kind of work out a little bit in Starbuck's favor. Despite not having a crazy amount of Roaches on the map or Ling speed, Serral has not committed a huge amount of resources to shutting down this third. The Lings are going to poke at it now, but he didn't build enough to go for a complete surround on this with the Queens. He's going to try to push this back, and I believe he's got that, walled off with a Roach. Yeah. So not enough of a commitment from Serral to guarantee a cancel on that third, and that's very nice for Starbuck. But, I mean, Serral's third base has been done for a while. He's been getting injects off on it, so the extra larva production could allow him, despite, opening with Ling speed, to still get enough Roaches to deal a hefty amount of damage. The one saving grace here in terms of this setup for Starbuck that gives him a slight edge is we have that +1 Carapace coming in with his ranged attack. So his Roaches, a minute or so from now should be better, but will he have enough Roaches to make up for that economic difference? That's the real question.
Yeah, I do like the second evolution chamber for those Carapace upgrades. A couple of Lings making their way forward. Not going to be able to find too much as the Queens are ready here to defend. But we got a handful of these Roaches, a small number of Roaches making their way across the map for Starbuck. I'm a little bit surprised. I'm curious what he wants to get done with these because he still has a lot of his units left back at home. And these aren't Ravagers. They aren't going Overlord hunting or anything. It looks like he might even just be looking for his opponent's Lings.
Yeah. Trying to catch these bad boys off guard a little bit, I guess. So the drones go by that third. He says, all right, well, I can see how many workers you have mining. Those Ravagers are coming in with quite a few Roaches for Starbuck, so it looks like he wants to try to make his move now. He has +1 Carapace finishing soon. He did start +2 attack, so he's not completely going everything here. I have a little bit of that fallback with the +2 upgrade finishing. But it's going to take a while before it's done, so I'm not sure if he's going to attack without it. It won't matter too much since Serral won't have it himself. But Serral's Roach speed will finish by the time he reaches there, so the lair tech, any upgraded advantage in terms of that is not going to be a factor.
Yeah, and I feel as though Serral's had this 10 or so worker advantage this entire game so far, and now it's gotten to the point where not only does he have the 15 worker advantage, he also has a relatively even number of workers and starting to overtake his opponent. So yeah, the Carapace upgrade is going to be important, but the time for Starbuck to do something with it, that window is going to be closing.
Yep, and this is one of those scenarios where you have to keep in mind that Serral is not a player who's going to slow down as the game continues forward. He's extremely good. And I'm expecting to see him take this game if it goes too much longer. Like, it's just one of those things where Starbuck's ability to keep up in the early game, you have less tasks that you need to focus on, so the skill difference isn't going to have as much of an impact unless you're getting into those early fights. But Serral could run away with this the longer it goes, and Starbuck is just trying to play toe-to-toe with one of the best Zergs in Europe. Let's see if he can make this happen.
All right, Starbuck making his move across the map. Serral's already scattered it out with a couple of his Roaches that did take some damage here. He's also trying to secure that fourth base behind this. If he is able to defend here, it's going to put Serral miles ahead. And he's morphing in a couple more Ravagers. Oh, the Roaches for Starbuck kind of leading before any of the remaining Ravagers here. So Starbuck gets a couple of shots off.
Now Starbuck's +2 attack is about to finish, so he'll have that advantage for just a slight moment. It'll be nice, but that left cliff, he can't really go up that against Ravager Bile, so he needs to come out towards this center position once more. His +2 is done. However, he's got to be careful of the Biles. A great spread by Serral, and he gets right on top of this army. He's got a significant advantage in terms of the Ravager count, so just having the range on that auto attack to kill these Roaches from afar is so big for Serral.
Oh, it's such a massive deal. And now Serral has finished up +1 Carapace and +2 missile attack. He is even on upgrades, and he won that fight right before the upgrades even finished. So things are just going swimmingly for Serral.
One of the Starbuck's Queens was out there in the open. Destroyed on the way back.
And remember that Starbuck doesn't have a fourth base. Starbuck doesn't have... He's down, 12 workers right now, and he's not exactly winning the engages. He's doing okay, but so many of the Ravagers right now for Serral are surviving, and he's got the concave advantage. It's not even necessarily that Starbuck played super poorly. Serral's just really good.
Yep, Serral had a really good start getting that third base up early, takes the first map, and I don't think either of us are surprised. Serral is one of the best, if not the best, Zerg players in Europe. You do not want to have to go up against him. But hopefully Starbuck doesn't take it too much to heart. I mean, yeah. I still see this match as I look at this group and I say that Serral should walk out of this group unscathed, and it's going to be just a bloody fight between Drogo and Bly, and maybe Starbuck trying to squeeze in.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the North American group from last week where you had Neeb versus Epic as one of the first matches, and it's kind of like Epic didn't go into that saying, oh man, I lost to Neeb, I'm going to get super depressed. No, he kind of says, okay, lost to Neeb, kind of expected to happen. Let's see what we can make happen after this. But he still is in this. He's still got a game number 2 to try and make some magic happen. It is just going to be a matter of what he can try and get done here, if he can. And if not, I don't think he's going to be too bummed.
Yeah, it's tough having to go up, and it's such a mismatch, really. But that's the nature of groups like this, is that the players are going to be spread out, where you'll have, usually 1 or 2 good players per group. This group, it's really rough for Starbuck because it's 3 good players. Not a lot of people are going to favor him versus Petit Drogo or Bly. However, those players are much more beatable for him than Serral, who has been a monster for the last 12 months. Yeah,
that is really, again, the big problem with Serral, is that he's not just this really, really good player who's winning tournaments. I mean, he is that, absolutely. But it's also the fact that Europe is known for its Zerg players. And Serral is sitting at the top. He's the king of a region known for Zerg. So beating him in a ZvZ specifically is probably one of the hardest things you could ask him to do.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what Starbuck does for the rest of this group. I think that's the real story here, is he is the underdog, but he's an underdog that's going to be competing for second place mostly. If anybody beats Serral, I would be shocked. I guess maybe if he's just having the worst day of his month.
How do you feel about just like cheesing him out or something? You had a lot of those ZvZ 13-12s, etc.
I think he's probably just too good. He's probably too good for that. I don't know.
All right, this is where you got to bust out the mind games, right? Where you say something like, okay, what if
you can try to do the caster thing where you're like, what if he, I don't know, gets distracted by an overlord or something. That's like, but he wouldn't be winning WCS circuit events if he was that caliber of player,
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Although there was a really fun match that I saw. It was like a collegiate match, but it just reminded me of, sometimes there are like some so radically stupid builds that you can do that you confuse your opponents. There was a very interesting one where you ended up seeing a Zerg player who I think went for a 12 hatch and then just went for a 13 or like 11 pool and just made massive amounts of Zerglings. And the interesting thing there was that I think it was a 12 pool and 11 hatch, which doesn't make any sense. That's like not a thing. That's not a build, guys. But it makes it look as though you went for a hatch first in ZvZ, and then you just make nonstop Zerglings that you just flood across the map with them.
Yeah, I don't try to make any sense of Zerg versus Zerg, honestly, because you need to be a Zerg player to have any idea what's going on in that matchup.
Thankfully, we have Cats on later.
Yeah, he would be here already, but it's mostly Zergs today, guys. That's a fair warning for you. There's a reason In Control's not here. He saw the groups. He's like, you know what? Oof, not enough Warp Gate going to be researched for me. So there will be a lot of Zergs. We've got Paolo in the studio, and I'm sorry, I was just getting situated with the lobby and everything. So yeah. I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're almost ready to hop onto Acid Plant for game number 2. Again, Serral, pretty favored, I would say, coming into this.
Yep.
Starbuck going to do his absolute best, but again, probably won't be too bummed if he ends up losing this, because actually, who do you think he's most likely to face off against in that follow-up match if he ends up losing this, as we kind of expect? Petit Drogo or Bly? Because we were talking about that's an even match.
I think Petit Drogo Bly is like not really possible to call. Like, it doesn't really. You could say anything about their recent performance, but when it comes to Bly, the outcome of the match is always like completely unexpected. So
yeah, I think that's a fair one.
Like, Bly could do some like dank meme build and crush his way through that like 2-0 really fast, or Drogo could, pull out some of that old fire that he has that we know that he's brought to the table and grind out some good macro games, defend the cheese, and make his way forward.
All right. Well, we're going to be starting up here in game number 2 on Acid Plant, top with the blue Zerg player. It's Serral.
And his opponent in the southeast position, the red Zerg, we have Starbuck. Starbuck is one of the guys who if he were not playing in this match, probably be in the Twitch chat with our online viewers, having some fun and some merriment. Starbuck is a very funny guy. He's got a great Twitter. He's just one of those StarCraft players who is very good. He's good enough to talk about the game in a serious way, but he's one of those players that we just, he hasn't reached that point where we're like, yeah, Starbuck is a guy to look out for. He is really good. And if you follow closely, you know that Starbuck's a good player.
Yeah.
It's tough to say that for anybody in Europe to hold a candle to Serral. I would be shocked, despite our discussion about, how good Bly or Drogo can be. I would still be shocked if whoever wins that match was able to beat Serral in the winner's match.
Yeah, that will also be another kind of interesting potential for an upset because it's still feeling a little bit unlikely. But regardless, as we get into this game, it looks like we have pretty similar openings with the gas geysers finishing up for both sides. We got the hatcheries coming down. And I guess contrary to what I was sort of expecting, I mean, it's still too early to say this for certain, but it does seem like Starbuck is not going to go for some kind of crazy early cheese. He's not going to go for the early pool openings or just Ling flood or anything like that. But there's still some opportunities later.
Yeah, he's just playing his straight-up game. If you really think about it, the amount of stress that a player gets from playing in matches like this, especially when you're unfavored, he should be thinking to himself, all right, this is my opportunity to really get into my groove, to warm up, to feel good about how I'm playing today. I know I'm probably not going to win against a player like Serral. Even on my best day, I'm probably not going to beat the best player in Europe. So for Starbuck to just try to hold it down, keep his macro together, he knows he's going to be playing another ZvZ in this group because he can't play Drogo twice, so... It's good to get in form. He knows he's probably going to have to beat Bly as well, so if he had anything funny, he wouldn't want Bly to see it. Or perhaps he's setting up a match here where Bly might be tuning in. Hi, Bly. And he's saying, oh, well, if this is how Starbuck plays, this is maybe the build or strategy that I'm going to use against him in a potential lower match or decider match.
All right, both these players are going to be grabbing their more forward third locations, kind of easier for the rally forward. Can sometimes get a little bit weird, but I've seen Zerg players take both the potential thirds. There's the thirds that they both took, and then there's the thirds that are a little bit further back, closer to your natural, a little bit more tucked away. So I imagine that we're probably going to be sitting around on Ling Baneling for a little bit longer, maybe not going quite as fast into Roaches, because just tendency-wise, I feel like that's usually a good play if you're going to go for the closer third.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how good Serral is feeling after that opening. He's cranking out a good few more Lings as his speed finishes up. He will add 2 drones into the mix, but he does have his Baneling Nest on the way, so there's the potential for him to try and take a shot at Starbuck, as that one Ling is going to run through, and he sees, okay, this isn't the fast Roach Warren play. Now, if he had seen something like last game where it's just a bunch of geysers being taken and no speed being resurged, then if he could have just, like, you can just open the floodgates there with Lings, but let's see what he does.
Yeah, okay, well, a couple of the Lings making their way over to that third base right now. They're going to get chased off by Starbuck's Lings, so Serral not able to make too much more damage happen here. I don't think that Starbuck has gotten quite as good of a scout out as his opponent did, but I think now he starts to see, okay, more Lings streaming forward. He got a Baneling going to get it canceled over there. That's a nice win for Serral.
Yeah, and a nice little play. I mean, at this point, you really just want to defend that third base without committing too much. That one Baneling detonates. It's weird because it takes 2 Banelings to kill the Baneling, so he uses his, but doesn't really get the value he was looking for. It'll make it easier to snipe with the individual Lings if you can get on top of them.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're also regenerating those hit points, so even a second Baneling is going to have a hard time eventually killing off the remaining Banelings. We do have more Lings streaming their way across the map, but Serral is droning behind this and getting up that Roach Horn, so seems like he feels he's put on enough pressure at this point, or he can continue the pressure enough with the Lings he has left over, and he's continuing to get these Lings in for the main scout.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign of respect from a player like Serral that he's not looking at this as where he can just pull the trigger and go crazy and try to just kill Starbuck really fast. He's also playing straight up gameplay, warming himself up. Although I guess it's kind of a weird thing for us to say. We're 9 hours behind these guys time zone wise, so they're in the middle of the day. They could have been practicing all day, but at least for the competition, he's not trying to rush to end the match as soon as humanly possible. But both players are winding up. We have Ling Bane play happening for Starbuck. He's got the Spire in his pocket on the way, but a bunch of Roaches are being produced by Serral. He's got a lot of Roaches. He's building defensive Banelings. Now some Banes from Starbuck going to run to that third base mineral line, and those drones split so well. Serral is a beast.
Okay, but he almost manages to find some connections with a decent number of lings, but like you said, it's the roaches coming out that's going to be a problem for Starbuck to deal with as they're even making their way across the map. Couple of more banelings going off. We got some lings surrounding, I mean, getting a good amount of surface area on these roaches to pick them off, but oh my god, Serral's going to save that roach, turning it into a Ravager.
You don't win WCS circuit events without being a real machine at StarCraft. So, what do we have going on for Starbuck? It's the Mutalisks that are coming out to hopefully save the day, but just 6 of them to kill off this whole entire force. By the time the Mutants chew through the Roach Ravager, he may have already lost his third, he may lose his natural, and possibly too much to recover from. The lair is on the way for Serral. Of course, he's going to need some from of anti-air to deal with the Mutalisk play, either going into Hydras or some sort of like just pump out Queens and get a Nidus, but the Mutas on their own are going to have a rough time finishing all of this off.
I mean, the roaches are just going to last too long for, I think, Starbuck to do too much about these roaches before they just kill off all the drones. He's already on top of that mineral line. Most of the units have already been picked off. The mutas are gradually working away, but he's not even making more mutas at this point right now. He's just making additional Zerglings. Now he starts a couple of mutas, but he's already lost so much in the process, and he's going to lose the third. This is just getting bad.
The Ling follow-up to finish off the third is extremely important. I think focusing on the drones is also really big. He's now had 20 workers. So what do you realistically do here as this lair finishes and your Lings continue to ravage? You get a couple, maybe you get a couple of spores, but get that Hydra Den, or just crank out Queens, go for a Nidus, do something to just get across the map and end this game.
Serral's so savage right now. He distracts the mutas with his lings, kind of runs them far off to the left so that the rest of the lings can make their way back into the main base to go after more drones. He picks off more drones with the natural while the mutas are constantly distracted. And remember that Serral's had, I think, a solid 2-3 minutes at this point to prepare for mutas, so he's finally starting up those spore crawlers. He's getting up the Hydra Den.
He's just been building Queens out of these hatcheries for a minute or two, and now the Hydra Den is on its way. So he'll be able to get everything that he needs shortly with the spore crawler. It's nice. There's not a crazy amount of Mutalisks. There's enough to be annoying, but not enough to win the game versus this setup. So with a transfuser too, there's no hope of diving onto the spores. Some of these Lings come in, but yeah, he's just going to tap out. GG. Serral is going to close this series at 2-0. No surprises there. We know Serral's very good, and Starbuck says to himself, he's like, oh, my mutas can't do anything. I lost all my drones. I'm not going to wait for you to build Hydras to kill me. He's like, I respect you, man. You got me. I'm dead.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good effort from Starbuck. And again, it was something that I think a lot of people were expecting. He was going to be a bit outmatched here, not because he's a bad player, but just because it's Serral. He is a WCS circuit event winner. He is one of the, I want to say most people would say, almost inarguably considered the best player in Europe.
Yep, Starbuck's a very good player, lower tier European pro, but when you're going up against the best of the best, they're going to make you look like a fool, and that's what happens. Serral advances onto the winners match. He is an extremely talented player, and I mean, for a lot of people, he's probably their pick to win the WCS Challenger for Europe overall. I wouldn't be surprised in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit, it would be a surprise if he doesn't end up winning. There are some people who can absolutely upset him, a lot of those top European players, especially some of the Zerg players, such as like a Laser or Merchio or something. But it is going to be kind of Serral's series, or Serral's tournament to lose, as this is about crowning the kind of king of the region.
If he's anywhere near close to the shape he was in when he won Leipzig, then like this isn't even, it's no contest.
Yeah. But, ladies and gentlemen, our next match is going to be Bly versus Drogo. We were talking about that before. This is going to be a very, I think, important match because it's going to give either one of these players, the winner of this this series, the chance to face off versus Serral and maybe have that opportunity to maybe make an upset happen. But more importantly, it also just means that they're going to have a direct potential to go to qualifying matches.
Yep. If you're Starbuck, you prepared for this group by studying what you were going to do against Bly and Drogo. So watching this match will be very interesting in case he ends up against Drogo. If Drogo loses, then he's like, okay, I got his EVP. I just saw what Bly did against him. Maybe I can play off of that. Should make the rest of the group very exciting.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with that in just a little bit. Please don't go anywhere. You're watching WCS European Challenger.